Hello and welcome to this live stream. This is the new studio that I think I've shared this on Patreon and the memberships, but I'm not sure whether I've shared it on YouTube. So this is where I'm currently working now. So as you see, I've got a nice fire there. So it's frosty out there this morning, so it's much appreciated. And there's a lot of work getting to this stage. This is it was my workshop. As you can see, a bit of a mess. So over the last sort of 6 months, we've managed to turn it into this. And this was the original house where we live. So probably haven't had the fire going here for over 70 or 100 years maybe. But this house is potentially over 200 years old. So a lot of history. So we've got two paintings today on this Saturday live stream. We'll call both the Saturday challenge, but either of them are really. You can have a go at either of them or both of them. And the replay will be available for probably about 7 days, and then you can watch the replays on tier 2 of memberships. I now have a membership on my website, tier 2, so all the replays and the workshop is also included on that, and I'll be uploading the past workshops as well. So great value for money, that one. So all the links will be in the description. So we'll get started with this painting. Let me know you're watching live. Just drop me a comment, say hi. And my live streams are normally a lot later, that's sort of 4:30 French time in the evening. And I'm actually now moved to 6 o'clock in the evening because I think that's slightly better for people in the USA. So it's a bit more convenient. But I thought I would do one this morning in France, which will hopefully include Australians and people on that side of the planet. So hopefully that's worked out okay. So we'll do a few live streams occasionally on YouTube. I do a weekly one on my memberships. So if you want regular live streams, you can think about joining me, and they're done via Zoom. So it's great to meet a few of you in person as well. So we'll have a go with the boat first. So we've got I've done my drawing. I do supply most of the time, not all the time, a traceable for members. So this is downloadable, and you can trace it and make it a little bit easier for yourself. We'll do the second one freehand. I occasionally do it freehand. Sometimes I trace it. Depends on what kind of mood I'm in. So I've got to think about tonally that we've got this wonderful photo by Vince. We've had quite a few good photos from Vince, so much appreciated. Got to get the tonal values right. That I want the water to sparkle here, so that will be white paper, which means I need to go a little bit darker with the sky to make the light shine here. I shall go a little bit lighter in tone with this distant hill here, just to send it back, and then perhaps a little bit lighter in the sand area off in the distance, and we'll try and get some interesting marks here in the foreground to create the sand. But boat's a great subject for watercolor. All of this interesting stuff here, it's just great. So let's give it a go. So hello Lillian, joining us from Thailand. 4 p.m. here, so that's great. A good time for watercolors. Right, let's go with, probably use 2 brushes for this. The Skoda Ultimo, which is size 14, which would be good for doing the large areas, and then the Skoda Perla, which comes to a nice point, which is great for all this sort of stuff. And I've added a couple of figures in the scene. And thank you to Rosa, who's recently joined my memberships on YouTube. So I've got memberships on my website, which is just www.robertmeeworkshops.com. And if you want the translations, which YouTube recently introduced, the audio translations, that's available on YouTube memberships, which is really good. That it might not always be perfect, but just open the door to different languages. So that's okay, tonal value wise. So to make the sky a bit more interesting, we'll get some white paper to sparkle through there. So, and I'll just vary the color a little bit. If I put a little bit of yellow ochre in there, remember not to go too dark, and just paint up into that and let it do its own thing. back into the blue. And a regular question is, how come I don't get green if I mix the yellow ochre and the blue? I think it's because it's a very earthy colour, the yellow ochre, that we get away with that. And I've got a spray bottle here that I can just put some mist on there, just keep it wet as I bring this down. And I'll go a little bit lighter and a little bit warmer towards the horizon here. And I quite like to perhaps get a light area across here, which will just increase the contrast for the boat. So just a bit of yellow ochre in there. I can paint over those figures, that's fine, and even the boat, because that's going to be darker. But it's quite wet here. Now adding that little bit of spray on there, that does help to keep this wet. And I'm quite happy with those little bits of white paper there. I've got it a little bit lighter there, and I can always just maybe just lift a little bit of paint out there. And I'll just give it one last little spray. And now I'll work on the sand area. So I think I'll go to a slightly smaller brush. Just mop that up. Let's clean that out for a moment. I shall just, I think, put some dry brush for the sea. Got a bit of cerulean blue there. And I use Daniel Smith and Rembrandt tubes. I find that they're good quality and they stay wet. Just a bit of something there, that's the sea. Simple as that. You know, it's such a small section of the painting. It's not, we don't need to fuss with that. And just mop that up a little bit. Right. Keep going. So the distant mountain there, I shall just pop some bit of blue in there. So I've made that a little bit lighter in tone than the reference. It just sends it back off into the distance there. So we'll have a go with this sand, which bit of yellow ochre, bit of burnt sienna, bit of leftover paint on there. Just to create a sandy colour. So light in tone, and I get a light in tone by having a lighter value. So I've got more water to paint ratio, which will give me somewhere between 1 and 2. Then as I get to the foreground here, I'll start adding more paint to water, so we get these stronger tonal values. And we've got to remember that watercolour does dry a little bit lighter, and I can paint up into there as well. Always looking for connection. That's the sand area there. And if you wanted to go a little bit lighter, which I think we do, I'll just wash it off a little bit. Just put some water on there. I'll keep it light off in the distance. And keep it light around the boat, because I'm going to be quite dark here, and it's the contrast that is going to add interest. So thanks for those of you who've liked the live stream so far. I think that does help YouTube to decide it's worth recommending other people to join in and watch. So I appreciate that. I appreciate all your comments on YouTube. That I know a lot of you regularly comment, and it's much appreciated. It's never ignored. You know, I do try and reply to all of them. Hello, Diane, a regular commenter. Appreciate your comments, Diane. So starting to now to increase the paint, and I want to keep this area wet, so I'm going to be splashing stuff on there and trying to create the illusion of sand without painting every pebble. So let's go more purple here and just mix in with that. So this is all wet into wet here. It's quite wet. I don't want to be adding too much in the way of water to it now. Maybe a bit of lavender. Let's try that. Just a few little bits here and there. See, smaller as they get off, further off in the distance. Keep it light around the boat. A bit of sparkle there would be okay. And what I can do is if I just clean my brush off, just take off some of the water, and let's have a go at just splashing some water on there. Some of it might end up in the sky. I'll try not to. That's going to create a little bit of texture. You can see what I've done here. I've just splashed just water on here, and that's now causing a run back. We normally try to avoid those, but in the foreground it can be quite nice. And let's just mix up a little slightly darker paint. Not a lot of water on there. And if I just put a few little bits here and there, but it's still very damp here, so this is going to soften and disappear to nothing. I think that's enough messing about with that. So we can go on with the boat now. So perhaps I'll have a go with the hull of the boat, and perhaps try and do that while the it's damp here, or should we go for a hard edge? I think we'll dry it, and then I'll have a hard edge in the shadow, create more of a sunnier day feel. So just before it dries, can be quite a good time to drop some more water on it as well. And if you leave those to do more stuff without drying it, you'll get no different effects. But just speed things up, I shall just use a hairdryer. I suppose you could use a smaller brush if you wanted some smaller droplets of water, but any that I don't like, I'll just do a bit of dry brush over. So we're on dry paper now, and we've got the sparkle of the water there because the sky isn't competing with it. The sky is darker in tone. So all we need to do now is put this boat off in the distance. There's a little bit of detail off in the distance, it's a figure off in the distance, and then the main character of the boat. So we can switch to a smaller brush now. So this is the Skoda Perla size 12. We'll work from top to bottom. Why not? There's so many different ways that you could paint this. Whatever works for you. But I find, if I do the hull first and then work up here, I could put my hand in it. So if I work from the top and work my way down, that will work well. A bit of neutral tint, a bit of red, a bit of blue. Doesn't matter what colour. It's just a dark tone is all I need for this. So we're on dry paper. And don't worry about getting things too straight. It adds more character, I think, if we've got, I've just made a mistake there. Doesn't matter. Keep going. It's only a mistake because I pointed it out. But no one will notice it if you don't tell them. Right. There's just interesting stuff here on the boat. It obviously helps with a fairly accurate drawing, but like I said, just made a mistake there, but it doesn't matter. Who knows where these cables and things should go. There's just stuff on top of the boat. Some blue. Use cobalt blue. There. And just mix up a grey. And to get your greys, you just mix your primary colours together, or any yellow, red and blue in different mixtures, and you can then steer it towards a warm grey or a cool grey by adding red or blue. Just a watery mix there. Go in there. And I don't mind if that blue starts running down into there. It just adds to the loose watercolour effect. We'll go for a top half of the boat blue, I think, across there. And just to make it slightly lighter in tone, I shall just use that grey mix down here. And then it's going to be darker at the base. And to get these strong darks, you do need fresh paint out the tube. If you've got dried up paint, you are always going to be struggling to paint in this style. So get a palette with a lid on it, and then your paints will stay wet. And I quite often put a damp tissue in there to keep it wet. Let that mix in there. So with the boat, we go from light to dark, so it's a rounded shape, and put that shadow in while this area is damp for the boat. And it's just shapes there. That's all they are, just shapes. Lift out a little bit of paint. I've got this System 3 short flat. It's a 1/2 inch. So I've just made damp and then just dried it. That should work quite well, just to lift out a little bit of paint there, maybe across there as well. And maybe there'll be a little bit of reflected light in the hole there. But, starting to dry now, so let's not fiddle about with it. So I probably plan to put some more colour and red on there or something. So back to the top part of the boat. Lavender in there as well. A nicely loaded up brush, but sometimes you get a drip of water on there, so I just roll the brush around. Oh, I forgot to do this side. Never mind. But sometimes not resting your hand on the paper does force you to create these more sort of looser marks, a bit like calligraphy, I suppose. And just the very tip of the brush for these finer marks. Marks in there. Try and get them looking sort of like windows. And there's a dark under there. There, that looks like a boat. Managed to drop some water on there. Exactly what I said it did. It drops off the brush there. Never mind. Turn it into something. A bit of rust on the boat. Quite old, these boats. They've got a lot of character. That's fine. So I've got some red, which is just a cadmium red. So I will add just a touch of white gouache to that, just to turn it to that pink. There. Let's have a nice red pinstripe on the boat. Where should we put that? Always looks good. So we'll have a go with these figures in a moment. Let's put that boat off in the distance, which we can just use this purpley grey and just paint it as a silhouette. There's a boat there. Another one perhaps off in the distance, but it can be just that, just a random abstract mark. And then there's little bits of detail from the distance there. So there's a harbour wall or something. Could even maybe put a suggestion of a boat off in the distance. It needs to be a cool colour. Dropping water all over the place. So this dry paper here. So if there was a boat off in the distance here, we might see the mast. And that's it. Don't need any more than that. Let's pop some seagulls in. I've got some darker paint. Figures. So I think this is actually a fishing boat, possibly. So these can be the fishermen discussing about going out fishing. Give him some overalls. Just he's walking, coming towards, just meeting up for the day. anchor them to the ground with these shadows. It looks like he should be holding something. Maybe give him a bucket. Or a bag. Something. There's something going on. And where I've got some big splashes of something there, which is a bit on the big side. So just take a bit of the paint off the brush. A bit of dry brush. Rope on there. And then at this stage, when you're kind of looking for things to do, probably haven't got much more to do, to be fair. But, let's put a bit of writing on the boat. Got some white gouache there. And you don't have to be totally legible. We can just suggest something on there. And we want perhaps the odd bit of a highlight. Be careful with gouache that we don't go overboard with it. Take some of that blue. Those blue cables. I think I'll leave it at that. But I don't think we need to do much more, if anything at all. Let's clean that off for the next one. So if you're watching the replay, let me know in the comments what you think. It's always appreciated. And like I say, if you want to watch all the replays from all my past live streams over the last couple of years, they're all on my membership tiers. Take the tape off. I'm quite pleased how that's come out. It's got some colour harmony. Let's take away the reference picture. So thanks, Vince, for that again. So there we go. Painted it as simply as I could. The important thing was the tonal values. That I went darker with the sky than I perhaps normally do, but that's just to create that bit of sparkle on the water. And all this stuff here, just chucking water on, chucking bits of paint on, just let it paint itself. It just creates a nice texture. And the boat, I did draw it very accurately, and that's quite important with man-made shapes. To they need to look right, that you can get away with a certain degree. That not all of this is 100% accurate, but the whole shape needs to be fairly good. And the figures, okay. But yeah, simple things like that. The distant boat there, it's just an abstract shape that you don't need huge amounts of detail off in the distance. So hello Magneta Gaming, it's watching from India. Let's go to this other screen. Right, so I'll just show you a couple of demos I've done recently, and then we'll get on with the other one. So I'll have a bit of a break before we start the next one. So these are all on my website at the moment, these demos. So this was an idea to do something loose. It ended up being a bit tighter than I wanted to. That I did a Seago master study where I painted really loose. Well, he painted really loose, and then I tried to replicate that. So I really enjoyed doing that exercise, and it's great to sort of free up and you just capture the overall shape and just let watercolor do its own thing. So that was my attempt at doing some figures in the same sort of style, but it ended up being, slightly more involved. But it's a good excuse to do it again. But I quite liked it. I did use a bit of gouache in here to get some highlights back. But yeah, I did plenty of Seago studies. That was a Seago study for a workshop. And I say on my website, Tier 2, you will automatically be included to the workshop now. And I will be uploading all the past workshops on there as well, so you can watch those. So it's going to be a great place to learn. That was a really valuable exercise, and everyone did really well on that, on the memberships. That really forget colour, get your tonal values right, and colour will come later. That this was just using burnt umber, I think, and blue, ultramarine blue together just to create a dark. But I really just concentrate on getting those tonal values right, painting one shape into the next shape, practicing watercolour, learning about edges, and just basically build confidence on how to move the water on the paper. And that's what watercolour is. It's water with pigment in. It's not like painting oil paints or acrylic. You have the water and you've got to allow it to let it do what it wants to do, and also channel it to where you want to go. But if you're worrying about colour, it's difficult to do that. So take colour out of the equation. And that's my local town, Le Chat in France. I do enjoy doing these scenes. I really struggled with town scenes in the early days. I still do now. They're difficult to do, but I think when I realised to simplify things, that helped a lot. That was quite good. That's similar to what we're going to be doing next. A nice strong contrast, and you've really got to use thick paint to get these darks. That it feels weird having such thick watercolor paint when you put it down, but it's the only way to get these darks. That was a workshop demo. That this is nice when you can get this water to look like this and get those ripples and that sort of calm look to it. So I quite enjoyed that. And then this was on Thursday's live stream via Zoom was a Piccadilly Circus. So that was quite good fun. But that was a few demos recently, and so they're all available on the website to watch. So on with the next one. So let's get the other reference up. So this is a mid-journey image, and I know it upsets a few people, me painting from AI images, but it's been a lifesaver for me that I do so many demos, I run out of photos, and obviously people like Vince and the others who've shared images on the Inspirational Photos group, much appreciated, because you soon run out of images. And I paint oils and watercolour. I've got an oil channel as well. So I quite often will use the image on both mediums. But yeah, AI, it gives me opportunity to have endless inspiration for photos to paint. And I don't listen to people who tell me I shouldn't be doing it. It's like tracing. It makes me laugh when people say tracing is cheating and so on. Many professional artists use it and have done always. And I often trace to speed things up. Depends on what kind of mood. I like drawing, but sometimes I'm just not in the mood for drawing, so I'll trace it. That I can draw. I've spent many years learning how to do it. But some people don't necessarily want to learn to draw, and that's entirely their choice. And there's nothing wrong with that. If you just want to paint, trace it. So don't ever feel you need to be given the approval by Facebook. That's my response normally is, yeah, tracing is cheating. Just like mathematicians who use calculators and architects who use rulers. Makes me laugh. Anyway, this is 11 inches by 15 inches, and the first one we did was 9 inches by 12 inches, the first one, so slightly bigger this one. Thank you to who joined us on the live stream now. Appreciate that. Thanks for your comments. Thank you, Diane. So yeah, it's very quick watercolor, isn't it? That Diane says looks like I spent hours on it, but no, watercolor is tremendously fast, which is why I like it so much. So, can we zoom in a little bit? I think so. Right position. Camera should stop wobbling in a moment. So, get rid of me. Start with a little bit of a drawing. Me. Again, I have supplied for members this traceable here, and all I do is I have a piece of paper that I've put some charcoal on, just lay that down and then put that on top, and then just obviously just press over the lines, and then it's good because you only get a very faint line. I go over it again in pencil, so I just get a bit of connection to the drawing, because otherwise you don't really tracing, you don't get much of a connection to what's there. It's a good idea to just go over it again. So So it's useful to make sure we get the things in the right place. So the horizon is quite low down, so it's about there. We've got some trees there, and we just need to know where things are. That we don't need any detail here. So this is creating that lead in here. So it takes us into the scene, and then we've got the big tree there. Stuff over here. We've got these two trees there. Obviously, you don't have to put all these trees in, and just put the ones you want in. I think that's probably all we need for the drawing, really. That let's make a note. There's that distant lot of trees there. So, plan of action. We need to make sure we keep a nice area of light here, because we need the contrast of dark against light. Plenty of light in the water. Again, big brush. So I think what I'll do is my board's normally at a 30-degree angle, so it's all just sloping down and running this way. But if I want to try and keep some light here, it's better if I just tilt my board up so it's flat. So I shall do that. Try to find something to put underneath here. Just bear with me a second. Get it back in the camera shot. So my board is now pretty much flat. It will be in a second. Right. It's now flat, so what I put on the sky will go off in all directions rather than come down. So that's going to be better. So where I want the white of the sky, I just perhaps put some water there. So the paper is dry. So, and colour wise, I quite like the colours that are on this scene, so I shall not be worried about following those for a certain degree. So we need plenty of sparkle. Where I'm painting onto dry paper, we'll get a hard edge, and then where it touches the damp paper, let's put a bit of lavender in there, it will get a soft edge. And good paintings have a good combination of hard and soft edges. So don't be afraid of greys. Abstract shapes. Spray bottle, useful. And then in with that warmth down here. Obviously all these trees are going to be darker, so I don't need to worry about painting over those. Watercolour tends to dry a little bit lighter, so you just try and allow for that. But I've got plenty of white paper around here, and that's where the contrast is going to be of light against dark. So that's looking okay. Let's switch to a slightly smaller brush, and let's just put a bit of warmth in the sky, so a little bit of red here and there. But the paper's all very wet, so this will disappear to pretty much nothing, hopefully. And with painting skies in this way, you really just got to have the confidence to just put it on and then leave it. It's tempting to fiddle with it. You lose the freshness. More blue. Lighter in tone. Just before this dries, I can just take care of any edges, or if I want to just increase the tonal contrast there a little bit, maybe. Now's the time to do it while it's damp. And then stop messing about with it. So that's the sky. So we can now tilt back down to the angle that I'm used to working at. Because it's all about, you can't control watercolor. You can to a certain degree, but not really. So by having the board tilted down, I know it's coming this way now, whereas when it was up, it's just going to spread out in all directions. You can see it's gone up, it's gone down, and so on. So the angle of the board is important, but 9 times out of 10 it's at this 30-degree angle, and I know everything is coming down this way. So it's started to dry here now, so I can perhaps do those distant trees. But if I do it while this is still just about damp, I will get a soft edge, hopefully. But maybe not, we'll see. Do a little test. So yeah, still just perfect, that is. Just the right amount of dampness that it's not so damp that I don't actually get a shape, but we'll get a soft edge. And that just takes experience painting. So if you ever do a watercolor that is a complete failure, it's never a failure, because you're a step closer to understanding what happens when you put watercolor pigment on paper. And the only way you're going to do that is do a lot of paintings. If you have to put a figure on it, it could be 1,000 paintings, 5,000, 10,000, however many. So no failed painting was ever a waste of time. So that's the distant mass of trees. Let's get that horizontal. And we'll just lift a little bit of paint off, because that's just a little bit on the dark side. So I'm just taking a dry brush, just pulling some paint off. Just give it a little spray. So the water area here will be basically doing what's going on above. So we've got some yellow ochre there. As long as I get plenty of white paper, it'll be fine. I'll put a little bit of red in there like I did for the sky. But you're better off to err on the lighter side here. take some of that grey, and all I want to do here is just make the paper wet there, because when I paint the trees here, I want some soft reflections to come into this. So let's switch to the back to the Ultimo. Bit of lavender, bit of azine crimson, bit of neutral tint, bit of burnt umber, bit of burnt sienna. But there's more than one way to get to this colour, so that was just one way. And I didn't necessarily intend this colour, I just kept dipping into things until I got something that was the right tonal value and the right temperature. So I tend not to worry too much about the actual colour, but I am concerned about, is it a warm dark? I'd say that's a cool dark, goes off into the distance, but this is now a warmer colour. So let's get those reflections in while that paper is damp, and just let them paint themselves. Vary the colour. Let's go towards burnt sienna, some browns, and these are Skoda Ultimo brushes, are great for doing this. These trees, some darks in there. Tree coming down from the top for later. A few darks in there. So while the paper's damp, we can get some darks in. While the paper's damp like this is where you can mess about with things, but as soon as it starts to dry, you've got to stop. Just take care of, you don't want any sparkle down here because it's all in darkness. That's fine. And I'll take that brush again and just drag it across there. And what I do is I just dip it in my water container, wipe it with a tissue so it's just damp, make it to a chiseled edge like that, and then you can just lift off there like that. And you can do the same. Obviously I've made it lighter here, but I can make it darker here, and I can put in some dark ripples. Not too many though. Soften those a little bit. So now I need to dry it off. This is probably dried here, but I'll dry it off to be safe. So all we need to do now is to create a nice dark shape and connect it all up. So we've got maybe a little bit of light area in there, a few little flecks here and there. So it's been quite interesting that since I've been doing my website, I've been uploading some of my older videos onto there, but I'm only uploading the ones that I think will bring value. That when I first started my YouTube channel, I was just basically painting. As the time has gone by for the last few years, I've now, I'm not just painting and recording. I'm trying to come up with ways to show you how to do it. Um, Hence doing the value studies and doing the workshops where I go, much deeper into my process. Obviously, you can learn, quite a bit just by watching, but I've found better ways to explain what I'm actually doing, which hopefully has helped people to learn to paint watercolors and share my experiences of getting to where I am at the moment. I've still got a long way to go. So the more you can paint one area very quickly, the better it will look. And combination of edges. I've got some just straight edges there, broken edge there. And we've got to connect it all up. So don't underestimate this bead. And what I'm doing here is I'm just loading that up at the base here to keep it wet, basically, because I need to paint the foreground into this shape. Now we've got some darks in there, but we don't want this all just to be dark, so we'll dip into some red, a bit of tons of yellow. And if you spend too much time worrying about colour, it will slow you down too much. And to paint like this, you've got to be quick. There's no two ways about it. So the quicker you are, the better your painting will look, the looser it will look. So if you're spending too much time worrying about the colours, you can't do it. And it'd be even trickier to try and follow the colours I'm using. I would struggle to do it. So and then I've just dipped into Pyrrole Orange, and it's just random what I'm doing all the time with colours. And this image that I'm using as a reference, is Inspire. It's like an oil painting, isn't it? So you have to remember what you can do with watercolor is different to what you can do with oils. So there's no point in trying to replicate the scene as is. What we can do, use some watercolor tricks. So I'm going to take some lavender, very watery. Let's just splash some on there, let it run down. Throw some water on it. See what it does. And what that will do, it will wash the paint off. And because I've got my board at a 30-degree angle, it's all coming down this way. So it will lighten this side of the tree and it will create some interesting effects, hopefully. And that is always the case with watercolor, hopefully. You never really can guarantee it. So we've got a tree. And I find the best way to paint these is to do it in stages. If you just do it in one line, you'll end up with a dead straight tree. But they grow in stages, they change directions, and so on. So keep it thicker at the base. And I've got another brush, if I can find it. My sign writing brush, which is good for doing these sort of loose trees. So there's some hanging branches. And this is now just adding connection through the painting, connecting some shapes up. And this is all still wet. It's got to be wet for it to connect together. I like that green that's in the the reference. So let's have a go. But again, when you're painting wet into wet, the colours will all mix together, so we might not keep the green. It might just go a neutral, but we'll have a go. I suppose I probably enjoy this kind of watercolour the most because it's very spontaneous. You don't really know how it's going to turn out, and you know, sometimes it's a mess, but quite often you get something quite interesting. Back to the sign writing brush. This is a medium Pro Art 9A sword brush. So we've got dry paper here, and this is a great way to connect the foreground here to the distance there. Again, quite often I'll scratch out as well and get some highlights back, maybe one through there. And it works better in the darker paints, darker areas, and not too much. I think I could do with a few darks on these trees. Where I've got some blobs of paint, just turn those into branches and leaves. Brush on its side, just a few flicks of grass there. And at this stage, when you're now looking for things to do, it's probably because it's finished. Lift a little bit off there while that's damp. So dry it off, take the tape off. Take away the reference picture. Hello, Vince, joined us. So take the tape off and look at that nice crisp edge. So I've gone really dark here, probably as dark as I can go, and that's, you know, paint straight from the tube pretty much. But you can do it if you've got these light areas, and you need them to make these light areas really pop. And all of this in the sky here painted itself, didn't fuss with it too much. These bits of white paper, incredibly important, because without them it just doesn't have the sparkle. You need that white to come through and give it life, the painting, and paint it as quick as you can. We've done both of these demos in an hour, half an hour each probably, which is incredibly fast for watercolor. And the more confident, the more experience you get, you'll find the quicker they become. But if you paint quickly, you don't leave yourself time to be fussing and messing about with things, and that's what destroys watercolors. We'll have a quick look at the first one again. So that was your photo, Vince. Zoom out a little bit. Side to side. So two different paintings, but painted pretty much in the same way. And most of my watercolors, they all follow the same path. That 3 stages pretty much. The first wash, setting the scene, the color temperature, and then we let that dry. Put in the main shapes. So we're painting the big shapes to the small shapes, and then just at the end, the little detail bits, and much the same. So there we go. Thanks for joining me live. I really appreciate it. But we'll do some more live streams on YouTube. That I've got an oil channel as well, so perhaps I'll try and do some on their oil channel as well. But I commit to doing a weekly live stream on my memberships. So that's on Thursdays on the Watercolour channel, and you can join that by joining just tier 1 on the website, which is great value. If you want the replays, tier 2. And I like doing it on Zoom because it's a chance for me to actually get to meet some of you in person, which is great. And you don't have to paint along, you can just watch. By all means, have a go at painting along. I supply details of what I'm going to be painting. And then at the end of the month, the last Saturday, I have a workshop, which a lot of you do paint along on the workshop. But again, you don't have to, you can just watch and then do it on the replay. But I do slow down quite a bit, that half speed, I would say. And I go really into depth to actually show you, why I'm doing what I'm doing and so on. That it's a sort of finding the balance between, with YouTube, to keep it interesting, because people do swipe away very quickly. That hence I didn't necessarily include the drawing on the boat scene, because the videos I've done with lots of drawing on them at the beginning don't get as many views, whereas on the membership I can show the whole lot, because you're there to see the whole thing. So what I do on my membership videos, it's focused towards learning and giving you the best experience, whereas on YouTube, we've got to be thinking about the algorithm and what's going to get shown and so on. So brilliant. Thank you for joining me live. I shall get these edited and onto the memberships. That the replay will be available on YouTube for a short while, and good luck if you decide to give it a go. And if you do, join me on Facebook as well. That we've got a group where you can share your photos on there. But if you want something a little bit more private and something I do engage in more, it's the forum on the website. So we'll get more feedback on there. So until next time, bye for now.